When you read the Gospels, Jesus has an irritating habit of discomforting people. The stories he tells make us uncomfortable, really. When someone asks him how we should love God, and he says, with your heart, your mind, your soul, and the neighbor is yourself. And the person says, but who's my neighbor? And you know the answer there. A man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among robbers. And who was the one who saved him? The Samaritan. Or he tells the story like last week. A widow without any kind of leverage, entirely helpless against an entirely corrupt judge. And all she has is her persistence. These aren't really edifying stories. And here we have a story here addressed to people, I guess as it says, addressed to people who are convinced of their own righteousness while holding everyone else in contempt. We have a Pharisee who would have been a religious layman or laywoman in Jesus' day. Someone who tried, as you can hear, you've heard this, that tries to live on the straight and narrow, is not greedy, is not dishonest, is not adulterous, pays his tithes on his whole income. I like that part. Pay tithes on his whole income. But clearly, this man sees this whole religious project as a zero-sum game, right? In other words, if he doesn't get God's approbation, if he isn't righteous, then there won't be enough, so to speak. It's the whole idea, in part, of scarcity. If there won't be enough for me, somehow I have to convince God to love me. Of course, the tax collector had no defense. By definition, in Jesus' day, this guy was a sinner. Because, by definition, he worked with the Romans. He collected their taxes. He dealt with pagans. Sometimes he extorted people, like Zacchaeus. You remember another story that Luke tells. Takes more and pads his own nest, so to speak. We all know how that works. And here he is. He's got nothing to represent himself. He's again somewhat like the widow last week. There's nobody going to come to his defense, right? We don't like quislings. We don't like traitors. We don't like people who consort with the enemy. We don't like people who tell us to pay taxes. And so he's condemned on at least society. But the one thing the man has is a broken heart. And he knows that he needs God's mercy more than anything else in the world. And he knows that he stands as not just a penitent, but a person in need of God's merciful forgiveness. And that's what Jesus says goes home justified. Because he's wide open to receive all that God has for him. He's not self-justifying. We all have been in many conversations, I know, where someone in the conversation is blowing their own horn, right? And there's nobody in the room or within earshot that doesn't think, how foolish is this, right? I mean, you may not say it. We're all too polite. Or we should, but as the person blows their horn, you're thinking, my God, this is really too much. The irony is that when we're blowing our horn, when we're comparing ourselves, we somehow think that everybody else has grown deaf. That they aren't sitting there thinking, where does she or he get off, for goodness sakes? Being polite to us, listening to us. Like this. Foolishness. But on an even deeper level, sometimes we feel the only way we're going to get ahead is to put the person down. So, I'm the priest and pastor. Nolan's the server. So, here I am, Lord. There he is. I'm up here, he's down there. That's the approach, though, isn't it? That many people have. Here I am, Lord. I'm up here, he's down there. So the challenge to us is to say, what really is God offering us? He's offering us transformation of our spirit. He's offering us, but if we've blocked it by our own self-righteousness, we'll never get to there. My mother, I was the good son. I had two brothers. One was also good but anxious, and the other was a black sheep, my older brother. And it caused all kinds of agony for my mother. She was a single parent. It was my father died. And but I would say, when I would get, even being the good son, I would say, I'd make a comparison, and my mother would always fire back, comparisons are odious. If I compare myself to my older brother Tam, or I compare myself with someone else, she said comparisons are odious. She wasn't going to listen to that kind of equivocation. And I think it's a huge blessing. We don't need to stand before God. What we need to justifying ourselves by putting someone else down. We need to be invite ourselves into the mercy of God. Obviously, we start from different places, right? By the grace of the church, I received not just my college degree, but my graduate degree and my salary and everything. Why wouldn't I be where I am now? No? The people in the pews years ago paid for it, so I could do that. Right? And so, what's the glory? The glory in that is that we all have a relationship. Maybe we accomplish something on our own and we say, this person doesn't measure up. But it's a total insanity. It's a total insanity. Friends, God wants to engage with you personally. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you're the good brother or the bad sister or whatever. God wants to know and transform you. It doesn't have to do with measuring up. It has to do with opening your heart completely to God. This tax collector had nothing left but a cry for mercy. He couldn't even raise his eyes. He was in a bad way. One of the blessings of a 12-step program is some of the steps along the way where people take a fearless moral inventory of their life. And then a later step, I think in step 8, they list who they've offended, and then they try to make, if it's possible, to make atonement. I think there's a huge wisdom in that, saying, I am powerless without the help of God. I am powerless without my higher power, as some of the 12-step programs are. Friends, you are powerless without God. Give your heart over to Him. And like in the second reading today, there's no limit. Even when everyone left you, you heard the story, right? Paul's writing to Timothy. When he came before court, there wasn't anyone there to represent him. His lawyer had taken off, I guess, or whatever. Certainly his friends had. But by God's grace, he proclaimed the gospel because God was with him. God's with you.